Right. So this is awesome. We're recording. I'm so excited to be here today. Of course, I'm Glenn Haussman. You guys might know me as a host of No Vacancy Live, or back in my college days, greeting people when they came to the Gap. Welcome. Come to the Gap. I appreciate that. So it's so great to be working with you guys. This is so exciting today because today we're going to be speaking to some great people at the major companies that are working with some of the brands. So we're going to be talking about some of the operational challenges and opportunities that are out there, as well as what it's like creating important partnerships with owners and adapting to current consumer trends. Also thinking about how to grow in the future. Obviously, everybody, before I introduce all of you, we have been through a little bit of something in the last 18, 20 months or so. I don't like to refer back to the unpleasantness, but it's kind of changed everything. And I don't mean change. I really mean accelerated trends that were already in the marketplace. Things that we knew were going to happen in 5 or 10 years are happening right now. And it may have caught us off guard, but it's giving us a whole brand new world of opportunity. Just look at me and what's happened in my career. I got sidelined by all of this mess, but managed to start doing a show every day on the internet. And just like what I did, hotels are reinventing how they are going to be appealing towards tomorrow's consumer. So we've got great panelists today. We've got Karen Gilbride, VP of Avid Hotels and Atwell Suites of IHG. Hello, Karen. Say hello to everybody.
Hey, everybody. Great to see you.
We got Elizabeth Harlow, Chief Marketing and Brand Officer with Sonesta, the little company that's now giving everybody a little bit of run for their money. Great to see you, Elizabeth.
Thanks so much, Glenn. Hi, everyone. So happy to be here.
I'm super excited to be talking to Leonard Gooz, Global Brand Head, Home to Suites by Hilton. By Hilton, of course. Leonard, great to see you, man.
Hey, good to see everybody.
All right, so I've had an opportunity to do a number of stuff with Karen, but this is the first time I'm getting Leonard to do something with me. The first time I'm working with Elizabeth over here, so it's sure to be something really super special. Now, guys out there watching, paying attention to us, I understand that we're supposed to save the last 10 minutes for questions. I don't like that. If you have a question, you ask it right now. We will get it in there, and we'll make sure that we address what you guys are up to. So let's get this started. Karen, let's start with you since you're an old friend. We'll set the tone for everybody else out there. What's going on right now over at Avid? And I think the last time I got to see you was over at your design center last May 4th. I think we did the show. I had a little Star Wars in me that particular day, with you and all. And it was so much fun. That was such a great show, seeing how you guys develop brands at the location where you build everything out.
Yeah, well, it's great to be with you again and with everyone. And yes, Glenn, they have finally let me out of the warehouse that we've been in over the past kind of 18 months.
It took a lot of negotiating. You had a whole team working for you on that.
Yeah, a whole team out there. But no, you're right. Last time we talked, I came to you live from our design center, which is our 40,000 square foot warehouse here in Atlanta, where we prototype all of our new brand room designs, public spaces, innovations for the future. And we get to build them out, test them with owners, guests, also operational teams to make sure we get it just right before we open it in a live hotel. But yes, I wish I was sitting directly in an Avid hotel today, but I am coming to you from our Atlanta office here and using a backdrop from our first property that we opened in 2018. Out in Oklahoma City, Quail Springs. That was Avid #1. And excited to say last week we opened 3 more Avids. So we're up to 47 and should hit 50 by the end of the year. So as you said, challenging time over the past 18 months, but it's been also a really great time for us to be really close to our hotels, our operations, our partners, and really hear what's working, fine tune, refine things as we go. So trying to really use this as an opportunity to kind of catapult our growth as well too.
Great start. All right, Elizabeth, let's take it over to you real quick. Over at the lodging conference, which is already 6-7 weeks ago already. Wow. You guys finally were able to start franchising some of your brands. So maybe for folks that don't understand the whole Sonesta story, maybe you can encapsulate that for us in a quick 30 seconds and then talk about the brands that you're now offering to owners and operators out there.
Yeah, certainly. So for those who haven't heard, Sonesta has gone through tremendous growth over the past year. I joined the company about 5 months ago, really to come in and help define the brands, kind of recreate the brands. Even though it's an 80-year-old company, there wasn't a lot of equity around each of the 5 brands. As a result of our kind of explosive growth, 2 new brands were formed. That's Sonesta Select, where I'm sitting right now in San Francisco doing our brand sizzle reels, as well as Simply Sweet. So that all happened within the past year. And then just as you mentioned, Glenn, we recently stood up our franchising team and development team, who will be responsible for franchising not only 4 of the Sonesta brands, but all of the Red Lion family of brands as well. So that's what's happening right now. Just to say that we've gone through a lot of change would be the biggest understatement in the whole world. So that's a 30-second. I know I went over 30 seconds, Glenn, but that's kind of where we are.
That's fine. I'm just going to have to dock 3 seconds from Leonard.
Okay, that's fair. That's fair.
Penalty. So,
sorry, Leonard.
Sorry to create all this conflict between you and another brand already out of the gate. But Leonard, man, things have been tough, obviously, over the last 18 to 20 months, but you're in a real sweet spot right now. Home to Suites by Hilton in that extended stay category, which our friends over at Lodging Econometrics says is 1/3 of all new hotel construction projects. And you guys have a lion's share of that 30%, don't you? Don't you have like 30% of the 30% or something crazy like that?
We do, and it's been a busy year. And first of all, so good to see you, Elizabeth. I'm in Nashville, Tennessee today, and actually drove by one of the Sonestas that looks beautiful by the airport. But yeah, it's been a busy year, Glenn. We are lucky we are celebrating our 10-year anniversary. So Home to Suites was founded 10 years ago, and we hit 500 hotels trading and another 450 plus in the pipeline. So we've had a busy year celebrating, but really pivoting and adjusting. Obviously, our operating models. Look forward to our discussion in terms of everything that's going on. But really just making sure we take care of our customers, our team members. A lot of things are changing in the market. And I think that'll be part of the fun conversation today. We're also growing internationally. So we are on the heels of opening our first hotel in China. So if you look at my background, that's kind of our China rooms going to look like. So that's Shenzhen behind me, although I'm actually in Nashville, Tennessee. So yeah, we're working both globally and domestically, but it's, a lot of things are changing. And with every kind of crisis comes great opportunity, and look forward to our discussion today.
Leonard, I think that's a great thing that you said that. And one of the things that we were saying when we were in the thick of it, and Anthony and I started doing a daily live show just because we were all struggling for something, right? We all were trying to come together as a community. And so we started doing this live show. And one of the things we kept saying over and over and over in those early days was variation on that quote, never waste a good crisis, right? And I think that's really helped inform a lot of what we were doing after we dealt with the ramifications of the sudden shock that we all went through. So, Karen, I'll take it back to you. I'm sure everybody stopped, took a deep breath. But one of the things that really surprised me throughout this whole last 18, 20 months is it wasn't a devastating end to the new construction pipeline. It wasn't a big change in the properties that were being converted with some other brands. What was going on, and why do you think that the market stayed so resilient that you're still having the opportunity to work with owners in pretty much the same way you were in 2019?
Yeah, well, I think it's because of this industry. I mean, think about all of us and how personally we felt going through this and how we could not wait to resume travel and to see people and to connect with people and get back out on the road. I mean, I was almost in tears at the Atlanta airport for a first business trip. I mean, who would have thought that 18 months ago, right? But
yeah, I was there yesterday, Karen, and now that I've been traveling, I was back to the old school airport tears.
Yeah. Not the bad tears. These were good tears, but it's what travel brings. And that's what we're seeing is in the markets where people can travel, they're traveling and they want to get back out there. And I think that's what you're seeing. I mean, the owners and investors that we have, this is a long haul investment for them as well too, right? A lot of our owners, this is family investments. This is their retirements. This is where they're growing their portfolios as well. And so they see us as long-term partners as well. And we're proud of the relationships that we're able to maintain throughout this extremely challenging environment. But as you say, it is a longer term play. And so if we think about brands like Avid and then also through this pandemic, we also launched, just prior to the pandemic, launched Atwell Suites, which is our upper mid-scale all suites product. And again, if I think about the time period now, longer stay, mixing kind of business and leisure, this is the time is perfect for this all suites longer stay type brand. So I think you see owners that really saw the resiliency of the extended stay market during this crisis, and then seeing all of the travelers who really do want to get back out there and are getting it back out there in force, which is great for us to see, for ourselves, for our owner partners, and also for our colleagues in our hotels. Now, it doesn't come without challenges that we're all seeing across labor, supply chains, et cetera, but it is encouraging to see the strong summer that we all experienced.
Yes. And the one thing I'm happy to not talk about on today's call is labor. So I know that's going to be very exciting. I don't even want to say the L word anymore. It's getting
it'll come up in the chat. Don't worry. You don't have to ask it, Glenn. It will come up.
If it comes up in the chat, people, I am going to school you and point the finger right at you. I don't want to hear about that today because we're talking about opportunities. We're talking about relationships between owners and brands. We're talking about some of the big changes that are happening in hospitality. And again, by changes, I mean the speeding up of trends that were already in the marketplace. Leonard, I want to take it back to you to follow up on what Karen was saying there. There has been a fundamental shift in the way that we want to live and the way we want to work. And again, it was already there. I remember being told in March and April of 2020, their digital nomad is dead. Those days are long gone. And I said, no, it's going to be doubled down. And I think that has what happened in society. I love that you see that too, Elizabeth, over there. But Leonard, how is that informing you on what you're doing? Because now suddenly people are untethered. Suddenly people can go wherever they want to go to work, be productive, and run their Etsy store. It doesn't matter where you are in the country to do that sort of thing. So it's kind of fundamentally changing the way that people live, work, and play.
They do. You know, when you look at these crises, even if we look back historically, when the Industrial Revolution started, et cetera, you go through these ups and downs. And I think you said it beautifully, Glenn. It really accelerates certain macro trends. They're already at play, but it just kind of turbo boosts them in terms of where we're going. And kind of the themes that we're seeing when we're looking at different points of research is adaptability and flexibility, really on two fronts. Adaptability and flexibility that customers are seeking. You know, there's a lot of what I call interstate migration that's occurring. If you look at housing starts in the South, a lot of people moving from the North to the South. There's a lot of shifts in the type of demand drivers that we have. So you see warehousing really picking up momentum. I mean, every city I go to, there is new Amazon distribution center being built. You have a lot more movement with certain manufacturing, blue collar kind of industries as well, particularly with the infrastructure bill. So there's a lot of movement happening.
Right.
And so you got to adapt. What you also have is customers are changing their expectations. So customers are traveling a little bit differently. So they're looking for, I was just reading this research from Diana, and 70% of customers are looking for a very frictionless stay. You know, they're seeking out airports that you can travel and have a touchless experience. So from a digital perspective, how do you enable those type of technologies? So those are the areas that we've been concentrating on, is using digital key that it can kind of check in. We can bypass the front desk, requesting connecting rooms because you have larger families traveling together, so you can have those. I can't believe you
guys can guarantee that now. That's really freaking cool.
Yeah, and so people are seeking adaptability, flexibility. They're taking their lives on the road, and we're also used to seeing our business transient customers showing up, the consultants in the suits and ties. Now they're showing up with their families, their dogs, their kids. They're traveling to Florida, they're working virtually. So sometimes the same customer is showing up differently and there are different sets of expectations. So the opportunity for us as brand leaders and all of our amazing owners and hotel leaders is, how do you adapt to a lot of those changing factors that are occurring?
Well, I just want to make it clear that I have not put on a tie for business in over 20 years, Leonard. So I've never been one of those folks out there. I always find it too confining. Why do I need this little piece of cloth around me? Elizabeth, so I think Leonard makes some really great points over there about, how we're shifting and expectations are shifting. You guys are in a unique position right now with creating this company you have established brands, you bought Red Lion and you're bringing it all together, but you do have a unique opportunity to reinvent the value proposition as you go forward and reach out to new customers and clientele. How are you thinking about aligning your brand, your individual brand focuses with the way people want to, again, live, work, and play today?
Yeah, it's as mentioned, the pandemic, the crisis, whatever, actually gave us a lot of opportunity. And as we looked at our brands, we went back to the customer, right? And of course, making it completely customer centric. And we did a ton of research, and everything that we're hearing, from Karen and Leonard rings true, right? So this notion of frictionless travel, we heard over and over and over again. But what was interesting to me, and where I kind of felt a little bit reassured about, was that people want that until something goes wrong, right? And then they want a human being there to help guide them through. So this notion of being frictionless until you actually need that human touch, if you will, which was reassuring. And what we also learned a lot of, a recurring theme that we heard throughout the research, was this notion of travel being an anxiety ridden experience. So how do we start to kind of guide our travelers and our guests through that angst ridden experience and be authentic in terms of how we speak to them? We also heard that sometimes there's a little bit of distrust from customers vis-a-vis hotel brands, which was fascinating. So really trying to help them and be authentic and transparent with them and be true to them. So that was a lot of the themes that we were hearing through our research, but very much in line with what Karen and Leonard were saying. And also that rise of the digital nomad, I think, is so key and just such a huge opportunity for all of us, especially as we look at housing prices and rent prices starting to creep up again. And how do you kind of provide that haven, if you will, for guests and travelers alike?
Well, honestly, Elizabeth, we're at the point right now for what I'm paying in housing. And, my kids are going to be leaving the house next year to go to college. And if I wasn't married and have 8,000 cats around my house, I might just be able to pick up and live wherever I want, because I was already traveling 125, 150 nights a year prior to this pandemic. So why not? Why not just live and work in all of these hotels? And brands that are making it easier for people to do work and be productive and create some sort of sense of sociability within the properties are the ones that I think are going to really lead the charge in many ways. Now, of course, what we're talking about here is just a specific group of people. There's a hotel for everybody out there. But I think what we're going to see going forward in the future is a huge growth of people that don't want to be pegged down to one location and want to better create that bleisure experience in their lives. I hate that word, but really combine living and working and having a good life. Karen, does that make sense to me? And how are you adapting and thinking about pushing your brand forward?
I mean, absolutely. I mean, here. I mean, I think, again, in bleisure, I feel like everyone's acting like that's a new term, but if we've been talking about that for a long time, it's finally like everybody understands, that's really a thing. And that's what people want coming out of this. And so, as people talk about, and there's been a lot of articles around the death of business travel and all that, I think that's really overrated. There will be business travel. I think what you're going to see, though, is, as we've talked about it, is more of this bleisure. So it's no longer taking a one-day trip up to New York and back. If I'm going to go to New York, I'm going to spend 3 days there, and I'm going to make sure I see Hamilton that I missed during the pandemic, right?
And by the way, I saw it on October 5th, Karen. It was terrific.
Wow, look at you. Well, you get the hottest tickets in town with your no vacancy.
The second those tickets went on sale, my wife called. She goes, the tickets. And I was able to get amazing seats.
Well, you're able to say, do you know who I am? I'm Glenn Haussman, for God's sake. Get me in the front row, right?
I did say that, and they said, sir, you'll have to wait on the back of the line.
Yeah, people like me, they're like, later, sister, get in the back, right? So, but yeah, if you're going up, you want to spend the time. And I think that's what we're seeing. And honestly, that was some of the insights, even pre-pandemic, that did lead us as doing our customer research when we decided to launch a brand in this upper mid-scale all hybrid space. That was part of the insight, is that you do have a group of travelers who are saying that, I want options that give me spaces, give me the space so that I can have this business leisure travel, if I want that I can extend my trip, but make it comfortable. But also what they were telling us, our Atwell Suites target customers, I also want it to feel really well designed and a place that feels memorable and creates an experience. And that was sort of that rub that they were finding, is where do I go for that? And so we really tried to take a design-led approach as we look at how Atwell Suites comes to life, creating sense of discovery within our public spaces. I don't have an open Atwell Suites to show you yet, but if you go to design, atwellsuites.com, hotel.com. You can take a virtual tour of the hotel. And Monday,
And it looks so freaking real. It's frightening.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, it's pretty freaking real. Yes.
Yeah.
But I flew down to Miami on Monday to tour the construction site, and they are working hard to finish that up by the end of the year. And then we'll have our next property out in Denver. So, and honestly, to your point, it is about creating public spaces and suites where guests can transition, can come out, they can work. I could take a business call from my suite, go down to the lobby, creating those nomadic spaces for our guests to be. So, couldn't agree more. It feels, you hate to say, wow, it's actually great timing for that, based on the trends that you're seeing, but it feels like good timing for that. And that's the interest that we're seeing.
Right. I totally agree with you, Karen. What you're saying makes a lot of sense. And one of the things that I wish people would learn is you can't go against human nature. As a species, we've been developing for hundreds of thousands of years. And just because there's a nasty little bug that keeps us at home for 18 months doesn't mean that we're suddenly going to change the way that we live. Our DNA says otherwise. We are social creatures. We need to be together. In fact, I would argue for the last 15 years, people have been saying Americans think travel is a right. And now I think that it's going to be even more so. So when people have been talking about this pent up demand of travel that's there, it is a pent up demand, but it's a heightening of demand, I think, permanently, because people realize during this time, holy crap, I only live once. I really need to start focusing on my life, getting out there and seeing this world, because you never know what's going to happen. So Leonard, I know that you think that way. How are you taking that kind of thoughts and really looking forward to the future, for example?
Yeah, and there's a couple of points that are really kind of coming together here. And I just want to go back to a point Elizabeth made, because there's a shift from, we used to often think about lodging, customers check in for 1 or 2 nights and they depart. Our average length of stay used to be less than two nights. And there's kind of what Karen was describing, a shift to longer stays. We're seeing people are seeking more, let me take my life on the road versus just check in, check out. We've seen our 7+ night stay occupancy has grown by 30% over when you go back to over the pre-pandemic levels. But it's not just the length of stay, it's about what you're seeking as part of your stay and the amenities that you're seeking. It's the way you travel. It's one of the things that's making extended stay products across all brands very popular is the kitchen suite amenities that you have, the grilling and patio areas outside. But one of the interesting hard trends, Glenn, that we're seeing is, I'm actually in Nashville today because we're having a planning meeting, but with pets. So one of the kind of really interesting trends that has occurred during the pandemic is, pre-pandemic, 2/3 of households in the US had a pet. And during the pandemic, 23 million households adopted a pet.
Wow.
And the good news for all of us, 7 out of 10 plan to travel with their pet.
Right.
The younger the demographic, the higher the number from a proportion perspective. So one of the things that we are looking at is how do we double down on this really what I would call an undisputable hard trend. And when people have the desire to travel with their pets, we as brand managers, brand leaders, and hotel leaders have an opportunity to either reject or embrace the trend. And there's a lot of, share of opportunity that's at stake here. And so one of the things that we're doing, we just recently announced a partnership with Mars Pet Care, one of the biggest players in the pet care industry. And we'll be offering customers a set of kind of services. Part of that will include, if you're traveling with your dog and the dog's not feeling well, you have questions, you have access to televet kind of services where you can get kind of live support. We'll be doubling down on pet-friendly signage and amenities. And we'll be, one of the very appealing parts of Mars Pet Care is they're associated with the Better Cities for Pets kind of platform. So we'll be looking to really just create more pleasant experiences and more frictionless experiences for those families traveling with their pets. But again, that's just one example. I also agree with Karen. When people do travel, they want to kind of do plus up. So from a design perspective, how our kind of lobbies come across in a very engaging way. You want to feel like a rock star when you're back in the room and feel yourself, what's comfortable, and really place value where it matters the most. coupled with some of those hard trends. So there's some real opportunities in the market. I think they're interesting to observe, and those are the opportunities we're doubling down on.
I think that's great. Elizabeth, I'd like you to respond to that, but also Michelle MacArthur is asking, do you see select service hotels, suites, and some additional luxury amenities coming, some additional luxury amenities coming into more traditional stripped down properties, I think, as travel is rebounding to meet some of the new desires of consumers that have bubbled up to the surface?
So just so that I understand the question correctly, are we offering scaled up amenities in what traditionally had been select service focused?
Yeah, because honestly, I'm seeing some hotels take a lot away, right?
Yeah.
Okay. I think that we need to start talking about putting things back in, but not all willy-nilly, not just what consumers say they want, but really understanding what they need and meeting those needs so you can have a more laser sharp focus while simultaneously offering more.
Certainly. I mean, I think that whether it's a luxury amenity, I don't know, it's more going to be around what the guest is asking for and signaling what they need. So, so if they're signaling certain intentions, then you're going to build around that as best you can, of course, keeping in mind, every other consideration that goes along with it. So I don't know if luxury is the right term per se, but just designing with the customer being the focal point of everything.
Right. So Elizabeth, how is that changing the way that you're thinking about some of your brands? And if you have any specific examples, that'd be cool.
Yeah, well, I think that, as we look at all these brands through a new lens and really defining what each of the brands are based on what the customer research has told us, we're designing with that in mind. And I think Karen has provided a very good, by the way, I saw that No Vacancy episode. It was amazing. So Karen, thank you, well done. But it was really impressive too, in terms of how thoughtful it was. And I think that everything has to be thoughtful. And again, that's what we were finding again in this research was there was a level of anxiety around travel and a level of distrust around travel. And how do you present yourself transparently to the guest and be very clear in terms of what the experience is going to be based on what their needs are. So as we look at these kind of emerging trends, I won't say the BL word, but how we're designing towards that. And we are actually, again, this morning I was on a call looking at specific specifications based on what the consumer needs, flexible workspaces, but also that opportunity to connect with one another, that basic human need that people are going to be so hungry for. And even pre-pandemic, in other companies that I had worked for, the research showed us that people travel to meet new people and to make those authentic connections. So now it's just going to be amplified. After all of that we've been through, that desire to connect with others is going to be even stronger.
Right. So I'll get to you in a second, Karen, but Kim Bradford is saying, please don't allow pets in restaurants. I saw a dog licking the tabletop of a dining room I was in, and it was a luxury hotel. Enough is enough. Don't worry, Kim. None of these people allow dogs in restaurants. They will be coming to a seat next to you on the next flight that you take. Karen?
Is it the question and you want me to take that
whatever.
question?
I thought you wanted to follow up with what Elizabeth said.
Just anything. Well, one thing I was thinking as Elizabeth was speaking there, I think one, it's about being real through the customer insights that we have for each of the brands, you understand what that guest needs for that particular hotel stay. It doesn't mean that you're not going to have a guest come in and ask for something that brand doesn't offer. It doesn't mean that we need to go and add that to that brand's offer. It might be that particular consumer is in the wrong brand within that portfolio for what their needs are. I mean, we've been really excited by the reception that guests have had to our Avid Hotels product, but it's a different product. It sits within lower mid-scale. So Holiday Inn Express is an upper mid-scale. So guests come in knowing Holiday Inn Express, and they'll sometimes say, I love the Avid experience, love this. I just think I need a little bit more. I wanted more room in my guest room, and I really want a full breakfast. And you're like, actually, that's great. You want Holiday Inn Express. You love that brand, and that's perfect. We have one for you, right? So the understanding and making sure, to Elizabeth's point, communications of what guests can expect in each of our brands and being really clear about that, clear to the guests, but also, and this is where we it's challenging sometimes. How do you communicate it to that frontline team member as they're explaining the offer to the consumer when they get to the hotel as well too? Right. How are they educating the guest that your breakfast will be, grab and go with a hot sandwich in the morning, versus a full buffet. You have to level set expectations. And I think that's somewhere that we've been taking this opportunity during the pandemic to really think about how do we upweight, how do we change the method of communications into guests? Because there's a lot on the front desk staff. So how do you use technology to communicate different things? How can we get ahead of it in pre-stay? How can you follow up with really great signage within the hotel that helps to communicate what we do and what we don't do, so that guests aren't left, kind of figuring that out for themselves. I'm not sure if that.
Yep. All right. So we're gonna, believe it or not, we're already like 2/3 of the way through this. I think we need to talk about how you guys are partnering with owners out there. One of the things I saw earlier in the pandemic was, sure, people were going to continue to invest in hospitality, but they were thinking about going outside of hospitality, more into QSRs, convenience stores, gas stations, self-storage, that sort of things. Now you're starting to win back these investors' minds and dollars. What are, and I can start this with you, Leonard, what are some of the folks that are investing in extended stay in particular thinking about, and how are you partnering with owners to meet their cash flow needs, their profitability needs, and all of that kind of stuff?
It's such an interesting market, because you look at how much capital has been just amassed, both on a global level. I mean, I think if you look at the trillions of dollars that went in stimulus on a global level, in some ways, actually, there's more money out there than opportunities. But we have a great opportunity to really partner with owners. Our business model, I love your point, Glenn, about human nature. And as human beings, we're born to travel, we're born to explore, we're born to meet and congregate and be social. And this is kind of one of those golden industries. Yes, we had a little bit of a downturn, but I think a lot of our owners and investors we're seeing, they have a long-term view and they're placing bets on this industry because travel is unstoppable. One virus is not going to change human nature. So one of the pieces that we've been partnering, I mean, look, I still remember vividly, I was leading one of our own advisory councils in March when the pandemic hit. We had to very quickly group together, and Karen and Elizabeth, I'm sure you guys did it as well, and adaptability and speed at which we kind of adjust operating models, number one. Number two, transparency and dialogue. I mean, look, it takes a village to kind of make sure that we get everything right, not just from a brand identity positioning perspective, but also from an operating model and from a cost and P&L model. And we've been incredibly fortunate to have some amazing owner advisory councils at the table with us, providing input and guidance and feedback. And we're talking on a regular basis. One of the other pieces I found incredibly helpful during the pandemic is, as tough as it was to travel, first it was kind of more regional driving trips, and then we kind of started expanding in terms of cross-country trips, but just observing what's actually happening on the ground. You cannot do it virtually. You cannot do it from the office, and we're seeing it in the other industries as well. So truly an ongoing dialogue with owners, what's working, what's not, what adjustments need to make, what can wait, by the way, but what are some of the things we may need to double down on, whether it's from a design or amenities or product offering perspective, because it's a competitive market out there. And when you're competing for share for wallet, you want to come out on the other side even stronger. And, on one side, you're kind of looking at where can you save, every penny on the dollar from a P&L perspective. But when you come out, if you're 1 or 2 inches ahead, those 1 or 2 inches will multiply in terms of opportunity. So it's been a really interesting kind of balancing act of near term and long term. But really, just to summarize my point, it's all about dialogue, listening, observing, having the right folks at the table, both owners, operators, investors, and telling our narrative really as an industry that this is a great industry. This will have long-term returns. And our people, our cultures that we have in each of our brands are one of the things that we cannot let go of. And Karen Elizabeth, I love the point that she mentioned in terms of how do we compete and how do we get our RevPARs and our ADRs to a higher level. Service and our people have a lot to do with it. And owners are leaders of leaders. So getting them bought in will help us on that front as well.
So Elizabeth, what is the ownership community saying to you folks over at Sonesta? I mean, I heard plenty at the big party that you guys had at the lodging conference, for example. But I want to hear what you guys are thinking. What do owners really want right now, and how do you feel your portfolio of brands is able to meet their needs?
Well, certainly. So as everyone knows, we're new to this development world or franchise world. So I think what our approach is, I mean, not too different from what Leonard was saying. It's the people centric focus, being adaptable to what our owners are looking for. We have to always keep in mind what the brand standards are and be true to our brand so that we build equity and create a virtuous circle in terms of what we are delivering, not only for our customers, but also for our owners. So I think that that's kind of the approach that we're taking, and being very understanding of what our owners are looking for. We are owners ourselves, clearly. So we have that kind of empathetic viewpoint, if you will, in terms of what their priorities are and what their business needs are. In terms of what we offer, again, we offer a range, right? There's different experiences, different quote unquote product for what the owners are looking for and what their business objectives are. So that's our kind of overarching approach to this new world that we're entering in. It's going to be exciting. It's, in terms of how the development team approaches it and how we work together. Of course, like I'm on the brand side to ensure that we, remain true to what the brand is and keep it front and center.
And that is such an absolutely critical job. So, Karen, one of the important things I think, particularly with a brand like Avid, is even though it's in the mid-scale category, people want to feel like they're in a more upscale property. So when you're trying to keep costs in control to get those owners to sign those contracts, how are you able to achieve such a high-end look at a lower price that gets those owners to say, all right, I'm going to invest in these bad boys?
Well, I haven't said I'm going to invest in these bad boys. I'm going to wait and see if I get that in any of the kind of development kind of conversations there. But they have said I'll invest in it, right? So I think it's about being exceptionally clear and relentlessly focused on your build cost target. I mean, that is the way to win, especially as you look at a brand like Avid Hotels, which has a build cost target of around $85,000 to $89,000 per key. And so if you look at that and then you look at a rate in the lower mid-scale space, the margins are tight, right? And so you can't have excess amenities, excess spend on things that are not valuable to the consumer. And so, we, in building all of our new prototypical brands, we start with a bottoms-up build cost model that the team sweats every line item. It's like, if you want that mirror, what does that mirror cost? It comes out the top, right? And if something goes in, something else has to come out. Otherwise, you end up at the end and you have not achieved your build cost target. And at the end of the day, no matter how great it looks, your owner advisory board and your group is going to turn to you and say, what does it cost, Karen, right? And what does it cost? And am I going to be able to charge more for what you're putting into that experience? And so the team is relentlessly focused on how do we basically look at every single operational cost? So that's from a hard cost of things going in, things that are being consumed by guests, and also labor. How can we be as efficient as humanly possible with the humans that we have within that space to achieve that for the owner? And that's just staying very focused in. And as Leonard talked about and Elizabeth's talking about, it's through constant communication with your owners. At the end of the day, from an IHG perspective, we don't build these hotels. We don't. And so they have to believe in the product. And I believe that the sense that they feel that they've co-built it with us is why they feel confident, in kind of what's coming out on the other side. But it's about being very clear about what you're trying to build and what is that budget that you have. I mean, all of us have done home renovations that went over, right? Yep. Where you said, but, I really like this counter. Okay, but we only have a budget for this. Yeah, let's do it. Okay, then you get to the let's do it. And you get to the end, and that's no longer, the kitchen of your dreams, right? So you have now reached something else. And so it can happen. And that's why it's staying so focused on those costs, because that is what, that's at the end of the day, that's what the owner is focused on as they're building these assets. And then it's about how do we drive rate for them from the minute that door opens from each guest that's staying there.
That's a really good exercise to have to go through, is having the owners challenge you on putting everything in. Because when, designers have a tendency to want to make it the coolest, bestest, this as ever. And sometimes that doesn't necessarily meet the financial goals of what that asset is supposed to do. So Leonard, that makes you have to really think about what you're going to put into those rooms. So we're running out of time, but final thoughts from you, but also tell us a little bit about how you go through the process of saying, this is what we're going to get the owners to invest in as an amenity, as an item, as a brand standard, et cetera, versus what you guys could just get rid of.
you know what, we'll just make it up. We'll just roll with it, you know? No data, no science.
Yeah, that was my
you know?
approach, man. That's how you get to so many hotels, right there.
No, just joking. Look, it's really three filters. Anything we use, we put it through a couple of filters. Number one, what will the customer value? And Karen, I think you said it beautifully. I mean, that is like understanding what a customer will value and appreciate, be willing to choose a brand for and pay more for. You got to kind of figure it out. And it takes, you know, quantitative, qualitative research. And you got to look ahead. It's not just today. A lot of these buildings we're designing, you know, it takes us 2 years to launch it. They'll be trading for 20 or 30 years. So you got to get it right in terms of the future. Number two, we all know the supply chain challenges that are out there. So how do you find the right specs, the right products for the useful life that you're designing for? So I want this product to last 10 years, 20 years, or 30 years. And you can spec accordingly because you also got to keep up with design trends. You don't want to be a super high quality hotel that looks like out of trend in 10 years.
That's right.
And three, there's also a sustainability aspect. You know, one of the things that customers are really valuing is choosing brands that are sustainable. And that is also a filter we're putting into this. And thankfully, there's a lot of lenders now that are lending against projects that are able to demonstrate that certain sustainability factors in it. So the way we're go through brand designs is really understanding what a customer wants. How can you choose specs for products that are of quality that will give you the useful life that you're looking for and get the best possible price point that you can get, but with a reliable supply chain in time to sustainability. So you have a really strong narrative at the end. It's not easy. It's a hard equation to kind of wrestle with, but that's essentially kind of how we go through a process. And to Karen's point, we're incredibly disciplined around cost to build, cost to operate, what the returns are, and how are you gonna win with the customer at the end, both on a business B2B side as well as B2C side.
Beautiful. Leonard, final thought from you, sir.
I just want everyone to be really optimistic about where we're going. We're seeing bookings going up and up and up. If you try to book any large event for next year, you're seeing a lot of group businesses taking off as well. This is the time to join the industry. This is the time to invest into the industry. I think the golden days are still ahead of us. And I think we're going to have a heck of a ride next year. And, you know, we're excited. We're exciting our troops. You know, we have my monthly call with my general managers tomorrow. And my message is, you know, take a little bit of time off. Thanksgiving holidays. Everyone's a little bit tired, a little bit burned out. Do take this time off. Next year's going to be busy. So take care of yourself. And here we go, 2022.
Yeah, I love it. And remember, if you're investing in a hotel with one of these great brand partners, even if you're a little skittish about market conditions today, by the time you open those doors, it's going to be a completely different universe. Elizabeth, some final thoughts for you.
I'm just echoing Leonard's excitement. I am so happy and excited about the future. I'm not cautiously optimistic. I am all in optimistic. I think travel is such a critical piece of our human nature and the human race, and it fills the soul. And I can't wait for what's to come. I know it's going to be great. I'm super, super excited.
Beautiful. Karen?
Yeah, I mean, I think completely hear these thoughts, and I think I'll steal some of that for Leonard for my GM call next week as well, too, as I was thinking about it. But we were also thinking about, I mean, it's a time of being thankful with Thanksgiving, and I think I'm thankful that, I don't know about anybody else, but 2020 felt really long. 2021 has felt like it's been on an accelerator. You know, I can't believe we're already at Thanksgiving of that time. I'm thankful to be where we're at, to the points that, you know, my colleagues here have raised around. We're seeing really strong demand. And we're seeing guests that are, you know, enjoying getting back out and experiencing our hotels. And that's what we all do best and what our hotels do best. So thankful to see that kind of moving forward. And then also thankful that hopefully we'll open our first Atwell suite by the end of this year. So come join us in Miami and check out.
Yeah, you would have had me in Miami, but winter in Miami? Well, absolutely.
Hey, right?
We will see you there, Karen. All right, I want to thank everybody for tuning into this great session. And remember, just like what we've been saying, human nature does not change. People will travel. They will go out. The hospitality industry is going to be bigger, bolder, more exciting than ever because of great industry professionals we have here like Elizabeth, Karen, and Leonard that are helping create great products for today that we're going to be enjoying for years to come. Be sure you tune into the No Vacancy podcast every day, Monday through Thursday at noon. And of course, we got our drinking show, Friday Night Out Audit, 5 p.m. Eastern time. Tune into that. If any of you guys want to damage your careers by coming on and drinking cocktails, let me know. That'll be a whole lot of fun. So thank you guys for being here. We really appreciate you participating and answering all those great questions. Thanks so much, everyone. Have a great day, and we'll see you next time.
We appreciate you, Glenn.
And remember,
Bye.
whatever you do, you've got one life, so blaze on. See you all later. Bye.